My name's Ed. This is my 51 Panhead. I've acquired it about 3 years ago after I sold my 38 Sport Scout, which was a world record sale. I decided to roll the money into this. Now, it was originally in a shop in Vallejo, California, Harley Davidson motorcycle shop. So the 51, when I got it, it had a lot of extra chrome on it, which was a little bit, how should we say, a little bit deluxe from what it was offered at the dealership. I've replaced so many items on this since I've got it. I've got new clutch plates in it. I've got a new aftermarket air cleaner. They're very difficult to find, but I've got the best one available. All the sheet metal on this bike is original. The Speedo dashboard, the tank, both fenders are all original. The floorboards are also original. The foot controls, I believe, might be replaced. A very good reproduction. The seat is original as well. Things I know that are reproductions would be the exhaust system, which would be very difficult to have an exhaust system looking that good on an original bike. I've replaced the handlebars, also reproduction, and the grips. The previous bars were noted as being later models, so I got the correct year. It's still a 6-volt system because I'm going for the OEM, but part of my belief here is if you can make them safer and more reliable, and it's not noticeable from the outside at least, I go ahead and do it. So my voltage regulator is a state-of-the-art. It has a solid-state unit with LEDs to let you know if the polarity is correct in the generator, for instance. Pretty high-tech stuff. The generator itself is also a late model, high-tech. You're never going to get stuck with this bike because the battery went dead. I haven't started this bike since September, where my son and I went on a national rally in Monterey, California, which was a great ride. Okay, let's take this guy out. Let's see if we can make it go bang for you. Full open. Next thing I do is a full choke. That's all the way down. Okay, next is the spark advanced. You don't want it advanced when you kick it. It'll be really hard. So I have to move this distributor to the fully retarded position, which is where this post lines up to with this screw head right here. It's all the way to the right. As you can see, it'll stop right there. That's fully retarded, and it'll make starting this bike a lot easier. After it starts, you want to quickly bring it to the full advanced position and let it warm up. Take it off choke when we're ready. The choke's on full and it's been retarded all the way. What you have to do is give it a full throttle, so it's wide open throttle and 3 primer kicks, minimal. You could kick it from one side of the bike or hop on it. I'm gonna hop on it right now. I'm gonna give it 3 primer kicks, and they gotta be good kicks, and they have to be with the throttle wide open. 1, get the compression right. 2, 3, and we'll give it 1 more. 4. Now I'll roll off the throttle. You see me rolling off? I'm going to take it off choke, give it 1 click of choke just because it's cold here. Then I'm going to turn the ignition on. We should get some fire. That's just the ignition. 1 more click turns the lights on. We don't need that. And come back up on top dead center, full retard. Bam, just like that. Whoa. You didn't leave the choke on 1 click. Put your hand on it, it's stone cold. starts your foot clutch. Works like this. Step it down as the clutch is engaged. Now that the idle is nice and low, I can slide it into first. There we go, we're in first gear. I'm going to pull away and go up and down the block for you a couple times. How's that? Hi, I'm in front of my lathe now, and this is a machine that I use a lot in the machine shop industry. It's for turning metal. I got a piece of stainless steel in here. But I've also rebuilt crankshafts in here and made an awful lot of vintage parts that are no longer available. You do it in a lathe. Very precise. If you look up here, you'll see a little model of a motorcycle that I started when I was 21. quite a few years ago. But it's a passion, as you can tell. I love this stuff. Above that is going to be my next project. I don't know if you got that in frame, but it's a Bonneville salt flat racer, which I'm going to be building. This blue windshield is from a modern bike, and just by chance, it might be perfect for my Lakester. We've held it up to the body, which you may see outside hanging on my fence, but this body is a sheet metal drop tank from a auxiliary fuel tank to a P-38 escort fighter during World War II. They needed to escort the bombers in to run their missions, and they needed to escort to protect them. And the only way they would do it was with these drop tanks. Ever since the end of World War II, hot rodders have been using them on the salt flats and try to gain speed records. That's what I'm going to try to do. And to go full circle from this spot I'm standing at, you'll also see a poster up here that I had at a show when I was about 19 years old. I had a 42 BSA, and that same poster was with me my whole life. It's a picture of a V-twin BSA. It's a rare bike, and I just found one. I have never seen another one like it, so I'm going to grab it. Here in the shop, we've done bikes for a while, obviously. I've got some awards that I've won over the years, in the last 10 years since I've gotten back into it. Built a 1920 board track racer that won best in its bracket at Barnaby's Machine Shop, which was a really cool tracker night. You'll see the tracker night number 7 there, which I got for best modern bike with my Triumph. Best in class is a race ridden, my son's 63 Norton. Also won a promoters award at Sears Point, which was a lot of fun. The one next to it was from my 38 Sport Scout, which did really well. By the time that bike finished, it was a 98-point bike, and it was purchased by a guy in Alaska for a record sum. But here in another corner of the shop, I have a picture of my 57 Triumph Bobber, beautiful pre-unit. I have a 750 kit on it. Joe Hunt Magneto. It's very hot. Had the suicide shifter on the side of the tank. It was a shit blast to ride. I loved riding it. We talked about how we did that 57 Triumph and also the 63 Norton right here in the shop. With this milling machine that I'm standing next to, I was able to balance the crankshafts, rebuild numerous parts on both bikes, balancing everything and making sure all the bushings fit correctly between the lathe and the mill. I don't know how we would do it any other way. Each part gets thoroughly inspected before it's assembled. It's not just a matter of putting pieces together, but rather inspecting each and every piece before it goes into the assembly. This is where I do most of my work. My bread and butter work is right here with the mill and the lathe. And I just want to get you into this little box here on real quick. This is what I really do for a living. It's precision parts for high-tech companies. It's what I've learned on. It's what I've done, probably for the last 37 years now. This is a frame to a cell phone. Oh. I don't have my phone on, but you can certainly see that. I get involved with some late model stuff, and of course the motorcycles, you can't get any older, the old school technology. So it's a passion. It's something that I've always done, and it drives me, makes it worthwhile waking up in the morning doing this kind of stuff. I was asked once what would be the pinnacle, what would be the high point of what I've been doing my whole life. I'd have to say the world record sale. That bike got it down pretty good. We sold it 3 years ago at Meekham's auction in Las Vegas. And I own the world record sale of this motorcycle. It's something else you can look up online. It's the proudest moment of my life. Other than my kids being born. My oldest boy was there. My oldest boy was there at Meekums, and the whole thing is over in 60, 90 seconds. I did a lot of research. I groomed the market a little bit. I knew the guy that bought the Chief, which was the record sale for the Chief, and I had kept in touch with him, told him I have the Scout, which is the cousin version of that Chief, in similar colors, except it was negative, the red was where the black was supposed to be, and vice versa. Kept in touch with him, kept in touch with a couple other guys, and turns out an Alaskan lobsterman with a very large collection bought it.
Wow.
He was very happy, and I love getting into the bidding war. That was something we'll never forget. We were talking a little bit about this when I had breakfast with my son and daughter-in-law. They both were there, and that made it really special. I told them what I set out to do. I told them I wanted to get a record sale. The previous record was set in 2007 by a very reputable builder. It was the same year, the same color, had all the same options. It was even accredited by the Antique Motorcycle Club, so it was comparing apples to apples. It was every bit as good as mine. And that guy at the time got $37,000, which I thought was really a pretty good deal, a lot of money. In fact, when I bought that basket case, I was at my campsite in Dixon, California, and I had this basket case Sport Scout presented to me. And I went back over to my camp and looked it up online. What's it supposed to look like? What does it even look like when it's all together? Because I really couldn't tell based on the box of parts I was looking at. And I thought, man, that's a really cool ride. I think I'd like to do that. And then I found out what they go for, and based on the $12,000 that I laid down for the basket case, I mean, I guess the best thing I could say about the basket case is he did a beautiful job on the wheels. It was rolling, and it had new tires on it. Aside from that, and the frame was painted. Aside from that, everything needed to be redone. There were no guts in the engine cases or the transmission, or a lot of research. I tell everybody I probably have 3 or 4 times the hours in research than I do of actually putting the things together. And like I say, I do all my own work. Nothing leaves the shop. I do it all right here. So that's the proudest moment of my life. That's at least with the motorcycle career and the machine shop. And I met a lot of friends with it. I got invaluable sources in South Dakota now with the Indian motorcycle guys over there. So I give big thanks to those guys at Jerry Greer's Motorcycle for Indian motorcycles specifically. They'll make an amateur look like a pro, and they'll make a pro look like the factory assembler. They're really good. So that was my proudest moment.
How long did it take you to build that bike?
I did that 38 Sport Scout in 11 months.
Wow.
And I put it back to the same show that I bought it from. Just to show everybody what for. Just to show everybody what you can do if you keep it all in one house. The old saying, the more too many cooks spoil a broth. I get it. You gotta.
It's true.
You gotta farm some of this stuff out. We're not all good at paint jobs, or some guy can't weld, something like that. I don't do my own welding. I don't have the equipment here, but I have a guy that I've done work with for the past 40 years, and he's my welding guru. Aside from that, everything's done right here. So keeping it in house was important. So 11 months later, I'm ready to show this thing, but I couldn't get it started. The magneto issue with the Magnum, I already told you a little bit about getting rare earth magnets in those old magnetos. That was the difference. So I had to hotwire it with a 6-volt battery and stuff the coil inside the magneto where you couldn't see it. But I basically ran the magneto as a distributor and was able to get it started, which is the criteria of one of the judging points at these national venues. It must run or you are disqualified. So I got it running, and I got my report card, and like I said, the rest is history after that. But it took 11 months, and then probably another 3-4 months of tweaking after that. But it was a beautiful bike. I loved riding it. I made this little model from scratch, and it doesn't really depict any one type of machine. It's more of a vintage interpretation of a belt-driven bike from the early teens and the early hundreds. These bikes are really valuable now, and I don't know why, but even when I was a kid, I liked the old funky stuff, because that's what got me started being a machinist in the first place, is these old funky mechanisms and how they worked. So I get teased a lot, it's old spindly stuff, and they're not very practical. but it's an important part of motorcycle history, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy it for its funkiness and its weird little mechanisms throughout any vintage machine from that area. It's going to have a lot of weird stuff on it. I can't even get into it, but that's why I decided to make this particular model. I made every nut and bolt on it. I made the spokes, the rims, and the tires. When I spin any one of those tires, they'll spin forever. I've got ball bearings in them, and the run out is less than 2 thousandths up and down and less than 2.5 thousandths side to side. They spin really true. It's impressive to see, but I won't bore you with it.
How old were you when you built
I
that?
started that model when I was 21. I was already in a machine shop for about 4 years at that point. So I got a pretty good handle on how to manufacture a little part. For instance, with the spokes, I believe it was 3 lathes in a milling machine because I had to cut the spoke to length and mushroom the head. You actually have to tap the head of the stainless steel spoke to get it to flare out. And then you take a cut on it to achieve a particular diameter of that mushroom that I just hammered into shape. And then another lathe to chase an odd 80 thread on it, and then a milling machine to bend the angle where the spoke gets laced through the hub. So it took 2 machines at the same time to run it. So, you know, if it was off in any one aspect, where the bend was, how long it was, I would know and be able to make adjustments in the machine. As it turned out, as the spokes crossed each other, I needed a little extra relief, so I had to turn down the spoke a little bit. So each spoke has been turned down where they cross over. Mm-hmm. And there's also an inner angle, too, from the hub out, or from the rim, rather, out to the hubs. So it's tricky. I carried 3 wheels because I thought, well, if one flies out of the lathe, sometimes you damage these things when you're in the lathe here, you know, if it slips out or... But all 3 made it to the end, so then I had to make a sidecar. Originally I was going to have it run, but I thought that was a little ambitious. There's a design on the spoke wheels.
Oh, for the model.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
This is the model.
Wow.
This, you can see the angle.
Look how straight his circle is. I can't even draw a
straight his
circle. Or, I
circle?
mean, how round the circle is.
This is all the print that I made for that motor.
Yeah.
Sketches. I guess a lot of freehand copies. But this one with this is the neatest one of all, I think. No, the frame. I got to find the frame for you. Sidecar, top view. I was a young man when I did this. Front end sketches, I think. Or shifter release.
Everything's very detailed. Like, no
This is
part
like
of that was without
old
detail.
school isometrics. This is the door latch to the sidecar, kind of.
Like all the calculations.
Yeah, it's just
and
so
everything,
crazy that
yeah.
you built this completely
This
by
is a
yourself.
nipple to the spokes. Tightens the spoke onto the rim. But what I'm trying to find here is a piece of paper. This is it. Isn't that cool?
Wow.
It's almost scale.
Wow.
Before and after.
So that'll give you an idea of the mind
Yeah, you just put your mind to it,
that's
right?
involved with,
Yeah.
with this passion that I've been, I don't know, cursed with or another, you know. So I found this, but what I was looking for was the information on that Einsdecker. So all because something's old and somewhat cool doesn't mean it's going to be a grand slam. It might not even be a base hit. Mm-hmm. So just real quick, as you know, I don't have all the original tools, but I got the original owner's manuals. This particular manual, see, I got one, was pretty cool, but then I found a better one. Because that's what I do. I find the best stuff available. And this book will cover you up until about 1956, maybe 1957, I'm not sure, but it's a hardtail. It's for this bike. The pictures that you see in here are for the 1950 model. So it's at least for this. And it's great, just great to have. It's, let me see. There we go.
Whoa.
By the tank emblems is a little different. Some of the trim, you got 3, trims on the rear fender back there, those little spears. Other than that, it's the same bike. Even got into the detail of this chain tensioner inspection cover. In certain years, the mounting screws were vertical. Many times you'll see them horizontal. All the replacement and reproduction primary cases, like I discussed earlier, I have a reproduction primary case on mine, but I made sure that my holes went vertical because that's the way they're supposed to go. And so I get a little carried away, but that's how I do it. This is something that I built about 25 years ago. I saw the magazine article if you get up underneath this airplane, you'll see the little motor. And that picture is my son here. I'm going to get my hand on it. That's Johnny playing with it when he was a little guy. Now, John, you just bought his motorcycle, his Yamaha 500 SR. So Johnny's playing with the little steam motor, but that's the same motor he was playing with all those years ago. And it still works great.
Wow.
And it's Johnny.
That's cool.
And it works great. And I got inspired by this little article here. So if I see something I get inspired by it, I want to try myself, try my skills, I'll just go in here. It's this cool little model book. I don't even know where. You get the idea. They had the drawings in there. That's the passion. That's part of the passion of what I do. You know, I see something I want to make, and I'll just make it. Doesn't matter what make or model. And like you said, is you keep a broad variety. You don't get too good at any one thing. You get an education. I did the Harleys. I did the 1920 Harley, the 1938 Indian. I did the 57 Triumph, the 63 Norton, and now the 51 Panhead. And we're going to Bonneville with the next project. So that's where the education comes in. That's where I don't settle into one spot. But like I say, do all the work, so I'm getting the full benefit of it. I'm getting the education from these projects more than anybody. But I could tell you everything about it, though, when it's finished. Building motorcycles, and especially vintage motorcycles, came at a really early age. And we were kids in school. We would draw pictures of hot rods and old cars, and we were in like grade school. As soon as I could, I would be restoring wooden furniture and bicycles and anything I could get my hands on. I was once given a bicycle from the turn of the century. It was pretty rotted out and needed some tubes replaced. And little by little, even as a kid, you can accomplish this. And when I saw the reaction from people, was amazing. How we could do such a thing and restore something from pretty much rust bucket. And I just enjoyed it. I always knew that the older vehicles, older furniture, older tools, just about anything years ago has a certain quality to it that almost everybody can respect. Things were made to last. They were easier to maintain. They weren't so mysterious. I found from my own personal taste is as soon as they put a motherboard and a computer chip into vehicles, they kind of ruined it for me. You started to need special tools and equipment and training, which is where I stopped. And I made sure that I stayed back in the Stone Age with a lot of the things I do. And now it's a forgotten technology. You start talking about magnetos and how to keep these things going. A lot of people don't know anymore. Even the people that are repairing magnetos still need a little bit to learn on some of the things that I've disclosed. Discovered over the years, rather, is that the magnets are very weak. Even with the materials that they had during the day, they were only marginal to say the least. So I put rare earth magnets in my magnetos whenever possible. And that's a good trick for anybody out there with suffering from poor spark in their magnetos. And without the proper mag, you're not running. So get it sparking hot, put some rare earth magnets in it, and it'll work good. They didn't have that type of material years ago. So it's little things like that I've studied over the years. It's kind of hard to sum up in a quick interview, but there's an awful lot of things that we could do in almost every aspect of these vintage bikes and cars and equipment to make them more reliable, make them more accurate than they've ever been, and still have them look like they're supposed to look from the outside. These are all monthly magazines from the National Club. I'll pull one out for you. Antique Motorcycle Club of America. I don't have my glasses on. Let me pop one here for you. I got from April 2014 is when I started getting into it on a serious level. More like fall of 13. So I'm going all the way to 2019 here. It's a quarterly. I think it's like $30 a year or something.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's really reasonable. I always get the 3 years, like $90. That's why I'm thinking it's 30. But I always get the 3-year membership. And this magazine alone, I'll pick anyone out. Look at this, how it's produced. Look how great it is.
Wow.
Every kind of bike imaginable. Just a wonderful magazine. And they'll give you the dates and the venues on water-cooled Scott. I can't believe that's a 3-speed.
Look at that tank.
So I just love, you can tell I love the weird stuff, right?
Yeah,
The unusual. That's just
cool.
what, how I gravitated toward it. Got a nice classified section in the back. It's a great magazine.
The antique motorcycle?
Yeah.
I gotta look it up.
You gotta join it, man.